Welcome back to Race Report, everybody. And that is the Styrian Grand Prix for 2021. And you know what? It was pretty good. We had a lot of first lap action thanks to certain drivers in the field. We also had some interesting strategy calls. And overall, it was an entertaining race. You know, a bit boring in patches, but I think overall, it was pretty good. In qualifying, we saw the first pole at Austria for Red Bull, their home Grand Prix, and they've got their first pole thanks to Max Verstappen. That was very impressive. I was also quite pleased to see such a big mix of teams in Q3 actually. We saw like one McLaren, one Ferrari, one Aston, one Alpine. It kind of gave you a sense of, oh, you know, all of these teams are pretty close. That was really good. It was good to see that mix there. Norris, I thought, was brilliant throughout qualifying, though. Really, really good. And I also thought Russell was pretty good, qualifying in 11th. I think that's his best placement for qualifying ever. And he actually got promoted to 10th for the race due to Yuki Tsunoda getting a penalty for holding up Bottas. And Bottas himself actually got a penalty as well for the race due to spinning in the pit lane. So both those guys dropped back 3 places. So our top 3 for the actual race start was Verstappen, from Hamilton, from Norris. Very impressive lineup. We saw an interesting strategy from Red Bull as well. I think we highlighted their good strategies last race actually, and they did the same again today, where Verstappen started on the medium tyres and Perez started on the softs, whereas both Mercedes started on the medium tyres. So again, just splitting that strategy, keeping their options open, while Mercedes travelling down one path. At the start of the race, the leaders got away well. There was a little bit of a fight between Perez and Norris for P3. That was kind of entertaining. Perez got him at one stage, Norris got him back. That was quite good. But ultimately, pretty unaffected. What did happen was Gasly and Leclerc actually touched twice. They touched once, nothing happened. Leclerc thought, well, you know, that's not my style in Austria. I'll hit him again. and that resulted in a puncture for Gasly and front wing damage for Leclerc. Gasly then, obviously he's in the middle of the pack. He's literally in the middle of the track as people are going to his left and his right. And he's got a puncture. He's just trying to stay out of the way. But unfortunately, he hit Giovinazzi and he also tagged Latifi as well. So at the end of the day, we had Gasly, who retired as a result of that because he had a puncture, suspension damage, the works. Latifi had a puncture and had to come and get that sorted, and Leclerc also came in to change his front wing. Main men to make great starts, so it was actually Ricciardo, Stroll and Raikkonen. They each made like 4 or 5 places each. Very impressive, especially from Ricciardo, who had a disappointing qualifying. It was good to see him make up the places. Russell also managed to jump up to 8th at this stage, and it seemed like it was genuine pace. He was going to get points for Williams. It was very exciting. But people were having trouble, especially in the early stages of the race, with the high temperatures at the track and windy conditions. We saw multiple people have like moments where the back ends wouldn't quite hold for them, even Verstappen and Hamilton, because of the windy conditions. I'm not sure if it was because of the wind or the high temperatures, but we saw Ricciardo lose power for like maybe a lap, maybe half a lap. But it dropped him 4 places, which was such a shame because he'd done all that hard work at the start to get those places. To instantly lose them in half a lap's time, which is such a shame. But the issue did clear up and he was able to continue, so at least he could fight back. The same can't be said for Russell though, unfortunately. He came in for a stop. He was the first one to stop actually on lap 26. And it was a really long stop, and it was strange because they were manually topping up his hydraulic pressure whilst at the stop, which is why it was so long. He then went out and he came back in the very next lap to get more pressure put in. I think they did it one more time. They just had to keep topping it up manually at pit stops. They eventually retired him. It was such a shame that his race ended because of mechanical failure at the end of the day. That first stop for Russell on lap 26 did cause an avalanche of people to come in for their one stops, essentially. Perez came in next. He also had a long stop, which was such a shame because it allowed Bottas to jump Perez at the pit stops due to that slow stop. So that was critical for both Mercedes and Red Bull's strategies. Because at this point, we saw most cars jump onto the hard tyres and, go to the end. That was the plan. One stop, go from mediums to hards, go to the end. We did see Sainz and Ricciardo go very, very deep into the race without stopping. They both finally pitted on lap 43. Monster of a race for both of them. It really worked out well for Sainz, but not so much for Ricciardo. Sainz came back as the lead Ferrari in 7th place after running as high as 5th at one stage. Ricciardo was all the way down in 15th. We saw Leclerc come in for a second pit stop. He turned it into a 2-stop race where he pitted for more medium tyres. This was interesting because it allowed him to recover brilliantly. He was so fighty on those medium tyres that he managed to drag himself right up, and he sat behind his teammate at the end of the race. Brilliant recovery from Leclerc after what was a pretty poor start, as we said. We also saw Perez and Hamilton come in for second stops as well. Perez was more of about 15 laps to go, and that was because he wasn't catching Bottas. When they were on equal tyres, he wasn't going to be able to catch and pass Bottas. They figured, hey, give him some new mediums. Let's go out there and see if he can catch Bottas in the last 15 laps. And he did catch Bottas. It was on the very last lap, and he didn't have time to produce a pass. So I think it would have been very, very interesting, very thrilling ending at least if we had one more lap. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. Maybe 1 or 2 laps short of that. Hamilton, also, like I said, Hamilton also strapped on new tyres. He went and got the fastest lap. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Hamilton just couldn't get anywhere near Verstappen. It was kind of a boring race from the front aspect, to be honest, because Verstappen just drove off the line, drove to the end, all good, no problems. And Hamilton, you could clearly hear it on the radios. He was frustrated. He was like, why am I so far behind? Is there anything we could do to catch up? And there was nothing. There was no response either Hamilton or Mercedes could give that would trouble Verstappen. It was very dominant. Although it wasn't all doom and gloom for Mercedes, like we said earlier, Bottas started with a 3-place grid drop, which meant I think he started in 5th. But he recovered from that to actually finish 3rd ahead of Perez. That would have been his goal, right? The second drivers, they're in their own battle. First drivers, they're in their own battle. Bottas won his battle. Not only did he recover from his 3-place grid drop, he did so and beat Perez. So, gotta say good job to Bottas in this race. There's others out there that just had like a decent races. Like they didn't get much camera coverage, but they just seemed to be going pretty well. Fernando Alonso was one. Yuki Tsunoda seemed to be doing all right after his penalty as well. And Lando Norris always goes brilliantly now. But because they were kind of out on their own, not affecting many passes, not being overtaken, they didn't get much camera coverage, which was a bit of a shame, I thought. But I'll tell you 2 guys that did get a lot of camera coverage, and it's split between them for my driver of the day. Either Carlos Sainz or Charles Leclerc. They got a lot of camera time because they were affecting a lot of passes and they were using their strategy brilliantly. Now I'm torn because a recovery drive like Leclerc put in usually automatically makes him driver of the day. But it was his mistake that put him into that situation to recover from in the first place. You have to say it was his own fault that he had to recover. But he did do a good job, so that's why I'm kind of torn. Whereas Sainz, he just executed everything brilliantly. So I think my drive of the day does have to go to Carlos Sainz on this occasion because he just made everything work. He made his long stint work, came in, got the new tyres, made that work as well, passed effectively, and was catching Norris towards the end, another 10 laps, and who knows what would have happened there. So yeah, Carlos Sainz, driver of the day for me. What did you guys think of the race? Did you find it as push and pull as me? Do you agree with Carlos Sainz being my driver of the day? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.